to the podcast, guys. Thank you for joining for another episode. I encourage you to stay all the way to the end because you never know which tip is going to hit you the hardest and be what you need. So let's dive right in. This week, we're talking about what you can do mentally to help yourself be able to get into that frame of mind that helps you change your thoughts. So, eating disordered thoughts are actually really hard to overcome. I want to just acknowledge you if you're dealing with these. This is something that I tried so hard to change for so long, and honestly, I think that my thoughts, they really changed when I made progress in what I wanted with my why and my vision for my life. And also, they made progress when I started to challenge what I believed all my life. And today we're going to talk about how you can do that too. So, number one, we're going to talk about 4 tips today to help you in your eating disorder recovery when it comes to thought patterns. Number 1 is tough love and shock to the system. Honestly, we're going to dive right in here. There's a meme circulating around that says, of course you would die for your kids, but would you live for them? And I'm not sure what else can draw your perspective more than this, because now you can choose health and you can choose to live. If you see a message like that, it can really shake you out of this place of like feeling like a victim, feeling like you can't do it, feeling like you're destined to be sick, and you're kind of living your own, you're living in misery that way. And a lot of times when you're in that frame of thinking, you don't choose the things that actually help you be healthier. So kind of shifting your perspective from will you choose to live instead of choose these toxic, poisonous thoughts, and perspective in life. Another wake-up call is when you see somebody diagnosed with a condition like cancer, because somebody that gets cancer doesn't choose to get cancer. Maybe you don't think that you've chosen to have an eating disorder, and there's a lot of different opinions on this, but one thing is that we can control our actions. Sorry, there's like a plane, like a helicopter going above. But we can control our actions in eating disorder recovery. And when an eating disorder is diagnosed, it's heavily defined by behaviors that are driven by thoughts and feelings. So you do have control. You just have to figure out how to change your thoughts, feelings, and then your behavior will change as well. So this episode will help you a lot with that. Number 2 is reshaping your perspective around food and remembering that breakfast doesn't have to be breakfast food. This is one of my favorites. So whatever you eat at the beginning of the day, you can eat a sandwich, leftover stir fry, a slice of cake or something. There are no rules. And don't get me wrong about this. You know I love talking about food choices and how they make us feel and how this actually matters at a cellular level. Whatever you eat at the beginning of the day, you can eat a sandwich, leftover stir fry, a slice of cake. There are really no rules that are set in stone. And don't get me wrong though, you know I love talking about food choices and how they make us feel and how that actually does matter. But getting it out of your head that breakfast means just eggs, toast, oatmeal, fruit, cereal, all those things can actually really open you up to having an intuitive eater's mind, which I think is really, really important when it comes to recovery, because if you can really take the charge out of certain foods, then you're not stuck thinking like this is a bad choice or this is the wrong time to eat this, and you really can honor what your body wants, because our body is actually really smart, and we don't give that enough credit a lot of times when we're trying to recover. And another thing to consider is when you're in recovery, the signals of cravings, hunger, and fullness, they're going to be really jumbled up for a while. And the reason for this is the nutrition has been irregular and your appetite hormones they're not balanced yet. And so we need to go through like a season where we're actually nurturing those back to a place. And one of the ways that you can do that is taking care of your gut and taking a probiotics regimen as well. Healing my gut was a really important part of being able to establish satiation, appetite, and I really noticed that I didn't feel cravings after a while. And a lot of my cravings had to do with not getting enough fat in my diet. So I always want to spread the word about eating enough dietary fat. Once I started to do that, And I actually started eating a more high-fat diet and started focusing less on carbohydrates. And that's not going to be the right approach for everybody, but if you're struggling with binge eating, that might actually be really helpful for you. Um, I wouldn't recommend that if you have trouble having an appetite. Some people with anorexia or ADHD, they struggle to have an appetite to begin with, so that might not be the best approach for you. But you can always bring your ideas to your dietitian or your healthcare professional, and they're going to help you be able to pick the way of eating that's best for you. And the best way of eating is the one that you feel that you want and the one that you feel like works for you and allows you to get the nutrients that you need. So that's the most important part about ways of eating. Number 3 is eating what you're craving instead of trying to eat other foods to satisfy those cravings. So this is one of the best things about intuitive eating, honestly. Food is really meant to be enjoyed, and it's important to honor cravings and eat a variety of foods. So there's a ton of different things that you can do in this area, as well as honor your cravings. You can do, my favorite thing is actually packed with 3 steps. So to honor and implement this area, I say don't restrict yourself from actually having that food, have some, but then also challenge yourself to learn how to make alternatives of that food if it tends to be something that's really like high glycemic, like let's say it's like a brownie or a slice of cake. Try to find alternatives, like recipes where you can make varieties of that kind of food, but in a more wholesome, whole food centered way. So this is something that I really like to do when I was balancing my blood sugar. There's a certain amount of people that have eating disorders that struggle with being overweight, and I was one of those people. So I needed to find out how to balance my blood sugar and also recover at the same time, which was really hard because I couldn't just eat everything. A lot of times in eating disorder recovery, they say, oh, just eat everything. And I was like, well, I want to do that, but I've already gained so much weight that I just feel uncomfortable with that philosophy. So I was trying to figure out how can I do this without making myself sicker, because I was pretty sick. I was struggling with skin issues. I was pretty overweight for my height, and I was, to be honest, I was so uncomfortable physically in my body. So I really needed to find out how to nurture myself, but also like honor my cravings. So I was looking up how to do that online, and I learned about low carb baking, and I swapped out my sweeteners for things like monk fruit and allulose, and I started to reduce my sugar intake without abandoning the sweetness. So that was actually a step that I took that was pretty important in my gut healing journey too, because I had a candida overgrowth. And the candida actually contributed to my appetite imbalance and my cravings. So it was kind of like hitting so many birds with one stone. And I like to talk about it because it was such a life-changing thing for me that I feel the need to just like speak out about it. And then the third part that I wanted to touch on is making sure that you're actually getting like nutrient-dense foods throughout the day from a variety of vegetables. Sometimes people like to eat fruits, and then also whole food sources like, if you're vegetarian or vegan, brown rice, quinoa, healthy grains like amaranth, and then beans. My favorite kind of beans that have the lectins cooked out is from the brand called Eden. And in the past half year, I've been starting to eat a little bit more beans in my diet, and I've been bringing back more of a variety of foods because I felt like my body was asking for them, which is such a gift to be able to have that feeling and that perspective and just be in touch with myself. And I could never do that before. So I feel really excited about that. So not limiting yourself to the real version, then finding healthy alternatives, and then also eating a balanced variety of whole foods can really help you with this step of eating what you're craving. And then the last one, which is the fourth one, is completely or totally ditching the scale. I really, really implore you to do this because outside of needing to have surgery or being dosed on medication, there's really no good reason for you to know your specific weight unless there's like a medical reason. that your team is like encouraging you on if you have an eating disorder, because the scale can actually be a really big waste of time and energy when you're assigning value and meaning to yourself from the numbers. Because it's actually really normal for your body to fluctuate weight from day to day and even throughout the day. So if you're weighing yourself at least once a day or more, you're picking up on all these different numbers. And what's the reason you're doing that too? It's probably to control what your weight is doing, which can actually be pretty toxic to your mind. And it can make you stay in eating disorder behaviors, and it can make you restrict food. It can make you not enjoy your life much at all. And I'm speaking from personal experience and from what I've actually heard from other people and clients too. So that is the 4 mental tips that I can give you today for helping to change your thinking when you're in eating disorder recovery, because so many times it's hard to really do that unless we challenge it. So one last thing I'll give you before we end today is just challenging yourself to explore these areas that we talked about each and every day. Maybe start 1 week with one of the elements and then be journaling about how that's going throughout the week, because I'm a huge advocate for baby steps and snowball effect, because when you try to do too much at once, it feels like too much of a shock, and then you tend to give up pretty easy. So don't do that to yourself. Take it one little step at a time, and we'll see you next time. Bye.